highly regarded director, actor, producer, and writer. His directorial skills can be seen in the retelling of the epic miniseries Roots and other films, like his directorial breakout hit, New Jack City, which we were just talking about, Posse, and Panther. As an actor, you might recognize him from Francis Ford Coppola's Cotton Club, Clint Eastwood's Heartbreak Ridge, and many, many television shows and several projects with Ava DuVernay, and so much more.
Welcome, Mario.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here.
Welcome.
Make me sound kind of important.
You are very important and very historically significant and currently significant. So that is something that not everybody gets to be. I was going to ask for your only one statement here. So you were the only one, or the only...
I am the only one. Now
Yeah.
that sounds rather like Highlander, which I acted. Or there could be only one. I'm the only member of a father-son, African American directors who are also actors.
Yes.
And I am definitely the only, brother who's had a father who's a director, and I played my dad in my movie Badass.
Yes.
And here's the trip. In 1971, my father did a film independently. He'd come back from France, called Sweetback's Badass Song, which became the top-grossing independent hit of 1971.
Yep.
The movie came out. He had a really hot secretary. I thought she was really attractive. And he wanted her to act in the movie, but she had a jealous boyfriend who said, no, you can't act in the movie. But, I do like Melvin's movie a lot, and I want to do the music. And he had a new band called Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yes.
So that's how Earth, Wind, and Fire came on to do the music for Sweetback. And so my dad's movie, Sweetback, took off. The Black Panthers loved it. They made it required viewing because they said that Sweetback made being a revolutionary hit. Mm. And in some ways, the Panthers did that.
Yes.
They made reading and knowing, understanding, something about the system and about capitalism actually hip. So knowledge was hip. Now, in a weird way, it's been flipped so that being ignorant is almost hip. You know what I mean? So, but back then, that wasn't the case. So that's why they embraced Sweetback. But what they call the mother country radicals loved the movie. The white kids came, the brown berets came, the Latinos came, and Sweetback became this top-grossing independent hit. After that, Hollywood, which was kind of going bankrupt, MGM had sold off its back lot, had a movie about a white detective written by a guy named Ernest Titleman, and they flipped it and said, we got to do what Melvin did. And they put a black guy in it, and they got another young guy to do the music named Isaac Hayes, and that movie was called Shaft. But it was not written for a brother.
Right.
And then after that, they made another movie called Superfly.
Oh.
And what the Panthers said
Sheila
was
Fraser.
that, and what the Panthers said was that, and it's great to see us like that. But when Melvin put Revolution on the screen, he put it, and he had a multi-culti crew, black folks, white folks, young folks all working together. But his movie challenged the status quo. Mm-hmm. When they imitated his formula, they slowly diluted the revolutionary message. So it's like the Panthers pointed out that Sweetback made going against the man, questioning the system, hip. Shaft made working in collusion with the system hip. And Superfly made dealing drugs against your own people hip.
Yeah.
So same empowered brother with the mustache, same good music, same good score,
suit.
but the revolutionary core was slowly drained out. Not unlike if you listen to early rap, or spoken word, where it's like, my dad's stuff, but Gil Scott-Heron and of course the Last Poets, Revolution Will Not Be Televised. That goes down to some degree, Fight the Power. Mm-hmm. But then later on, it gets watered down and it becomes rapping about materialism. And so you've inherited the bravado and the stance of the Black Panthers and Malcolm, but without the political ideology to understand that shooting yourself or just buying into capitalism like that is actually counterproductive.
Right.
And so as my dad and I talked about, as Paul Robeson said, when you buy into the culture and the values of people who would buy and sell you, what have you become? So I got to see my dad when I said
Paul Robeson said that?
Yeah. I got to see my dad do Sweetback in 1971. And 20 years later, there were kids that grew up who saw that image of black folks on the screen, women on the screen, sisters with froze on the screen, and said, I want to do that. And there were kids like Spike Lee, kids like John Singleton, kids like the Hudlin brothers, kids like Tarantino, and kids like Mario Van Peebles. And in 1991, exactly 20 years after 1971, my movie comes out inside the studio system for Warner Brothers, and I take some of the same formula with that great soundtrack. We have a double platinum soundtrack on New Jack City, and I do to some degree what my dad did 20 years later, and that's kind of a big only one.
That's a huge only one. That's your only one statement.
That's my only one statement. That's a long ass only one statement.
Okay.
Oh, you're like, how do we condense that down? How can we get a shorter version of it?
We don't need to condense it.
We won't
It's fucking
change that,
perfect, but I will have you say the statement one more time just to get a clean...
So here's my only one. My father and I, Melvin Van Peebles, Melvin Van Movies, I call him the OG badass,
I like that.
are the only African-American father and sons filmmakers in the room. And especially if you add to that the additional only one that I played my dad while someone else played me in my film Badass, about him making Sweetback's Badass song.
Right.
That's a big fat only one.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so I just wanted to go back. I mean, you just gave us a whole lot of history just then. A lot of it I didn't know, but some of it I did. And I wanted to go back before Sweetback's Badass song to 1970, I think. And there was a movie called Watermelon Man that was released within the studio system. And I didn't see it. It's a white man who wakes up black. Is that correct? And your father had an experience making that movie, because it was your father's movie, where he decided he wanted to take agency of his own film next. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can add to that if you,
Yeah, no,
whenever
go
you're
ahead.
ready for
Yeah.
me to jump in. Okay, so when he did, he came back from France because he went to France. Wow, I should share something with you guys. Can I share something with you?
Yeah.
Just hold on a second. Let me just share something with you. All right, this is going to help you. All right.
He's pulled out his phone now.
Yeah, he's pulled out his
He's
phone.
looking up
Okay.
something for us.
All right.
We're waiting with bated breath here
Yes.
in the studio.
Okay.
Silence
It's good timing
provided.
anyway.
Well, for sound
It's a
anyway.
great time to
Yeah,
hold.
yeah. Okay, so recently, I'm a firm believer that you don't live, you can't put life in your work. So periodically, I do life adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And in my last life adventure, I went to Saigon and met a buddy of mine who's Vietnamese, and he's a fighter and a social worker. And we rented motorcycles, and we drove into Hanoi and up to Da Nang, and traveled all around. And
You were
on
in
this
Vietnam.
trip, we were in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And on this trip, I did something I hadn't done in years, and I deliberately did it. I got bored. I let myself stay in the hotel room every now and then. Said, "No, I'm not going to go out today. I'm just going to stay." I didn't read. I didn't make notes. And I let the sort of stuff that washes out, the commercials, all the dumb shit first, and then I actually heard some thoughts that might be mine. You know, because you kind of don't know. You've been processed and packaged and homogenized and fed, so a lot of our thoughts are not necessarily ours. They're sort of, culture think what. So in that, I started thinking about my dad and how unique a guy he is, and I thought, well, what would be kind of a kick is to write something for him. So I'll read a little bit of it to you. Let me tell you the saga of Badass Mel. He took the devil's lunch money and charged his ass rent for hell. He put revolution on the screen, made Hollywood his bitch, made niggas feel proud and poor people feel rich. They wouldn't let him in at the bottom, so he came in at the top, but when old Sweetback gets started, boy, he ain't gonna stop. Now, the way the colonizer keeps your mind from being free is the misuse of movies, education, religion, and TV. In their movies, Indians got shot, Mexicans were bandits, Asians were houseboys. The colonizer planned it. If black folks were second class, women were frail, everyone marginalized unless you was white male.
MVP said, "Land of the free, home of the brave. I'm sick of them casting us as servants and slaves. Folks want to be the success they see, so we can no longer let them control our imagery. When you buy into the values of someone who'd buy and sell you, you become self-destructive and imitate what they do." Melvin understood something deeply profound. Modern-day slaves ain't in chains, they're in debt and kept down. But he wasn't materialistic. He knew real education was the key. He could throw hands when he needed, but it was his mind that kept him free. When Hollywood passed on his movies and publishers turned down his prose, he said, "Rejection ain't nothing, baby, but opportunity and work clothes." His homie said, "It's all for the best. Messing with the man wouldn't be wise. Besides, America ain't really ready for the revolution to be televised." "If they ain't ready for me in this raceocracy, I'll go to Europe, move overseas. I'll learn what the OG colonizers do, beat them at their own game. They got books and movies too." "How you gonna afford that, man? You broke with 2 kids and a wife. You could end up in a foreign jail or even lose your life. My wife ain't money hungry, and my kids are resilient. And if they're raised culturally free, souls have a better chance to be brilliant." Melvin taught himself French, became an underground star, knocked the big out them European bigots, and never dropped his cigar. He came back from Europe still black and still proud, but now he had the work experience to live his truth out loud. Hollywood said, what can you do? This HNIC must be crazy. He ain't scared of us, and he damn sure ain't lazy. They said, direct another comedy, make us lots of money, be a credit to your race. You people are naturally funny. His homies said, take that cash, buy a mansion, and ride with a gangster lean. Get a picture of yourself on the cover of Ebony magazine. That's as far as I got.
That's amazing.
But it gives you a little story. So,
well, that's the whole interview.
So it kind of follows the saga
yes.
of Badass Mel.
He did Watermelon.
He did Watermelon,
and
so
then
he came
went
back.
to Europe.
He came back from Europe.
Yeah.
His film had won at the San Francisco Film Festival in 1968. And Hollywood was embarrassed because the first time he came here, they basically said, we don't need cable car operators, trying to be telling us what to do. And he kept saying, you're not showing people of color the way they want to see themselves. You have us depicted as Motisa class. Motisa, Mokofficer. You've already showing us as the servant class.
I've never heard Motisa.
Was it Motisa? It was the Motisa. So he kept saying, you're leaving money on the table, and they didn't hear it. So he came back. He did Watermelon Man. It's about a white guy who wakes up black. It's a nightmare, and at the end he wakes up white again. And my dad never shot the ending because he didn't think being black was a nightmare, so he never shot the guy waking up. So they were like, Bell, what's the ending? He's, oh my God, I think I forgot that. And then they wanted to do another comedy, which is where my sort of little story goes.
Yeah.
And he said, look, they just, they took out, Malcolm, they took out Martin, and I just don't think Black America's in a laughing mood. And it's time, the context of colored was, we're colored meant we're just a little different from white. Please recognize our humanity and give us a slice of the American pie. And so it was sort of an asking mode. It was and if you look at cinema during the time of colored, we had to be extra. It's like Colin Powell was so much smarter than Bush. It was so clear. It's like Spock was really the colored guy. Do you know what I mean? He was like kicked Captain Kirk's ass, but he was the guy with the pointy ears. So he was never going to get to kiss the purple chick and do all this. But so I maintained that Captain Kirk was the the Colin Powell of his on TV. Do you know what I mean? And so. But Malcolm, so Dr. King had said, freedom by any means, and Malcolm said freedom by any means, and they killed them both. The notion was that, and what Malcolm said was, I think the colonizer's been whipping your ass for 400 years. He's just getting better at it. I don't think power concedes anything without demand. If you think you can sing your way up to some freedom on some We Shall Overcome, God bless you, listen to him, because the alternative is me. Right. And when they killed both Malcolm and Martin, people got tired of the colored thing. Yeah. And that's when the Panthers came out and Afros, and people started saying, you cannot fight racism with racism, but you have to recognize your own beauty. Black is beautiful too, not at the expense of yellow or brown or white or anything. It's just beautiful as well.
Right.
And so you started to see the emergence of the Black Power movement in response to being colored. And no longer saying we want a piece of the little American pie. Now it's saying black and I'm proud.
Which
And that
is
had
the
not,
revolution.
and that had not been, that
Yeah.
revolution had not been televised,
Nope.
had not been put on the silver screen.
Yeah.
And my dad, about the time of Watermelon Man, said, America, black America is not in a laughing mood. I'm going to do a movie about a brother who becomes a revolutionary, and goes from a me mentality from a we mentality from a me, to a we mentality, with understanding that, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah.
And so he makes Sweetback, and that becomes that hit, and that changes the whole Hollywood game. So that's
Wow.
what that's about.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, so he did do the comedy first. I worked on Watermelon Man as a kid.
Yeah.
And that was
Yes.
quite the experience. And then I worked, of course, as you know, in
On
my
Sweetback.
dad's film. Yeah.
I have a quote from you.
Hmm.
Because you are, with regard to Sweetback, which we're going to talk about in its entirety, and then I want to get more into what you've worked on as
Yeah.
a director and an actor. But you personally are on more than one top 10 list of the most controversial sex scenes ever. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. There are 3 that you were in the top 10 for that one scene. You were 13 years old during filming, right?
Mhm.
And you were 14 when it came out. And it's a scene where they call it a rape. Would you describe it that way?
No.
No. It's a consensual
Oh, yeah.
sex scene. I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
why they call it a
Yeah,
rape,
yeah.
but because I saw
Oh,
it.
because the character's underage.
Underage, so it's
I played-
statutory then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played my dad's character, Sweetback, losing his virginity,
Right.
and
And it's simulated.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
entirely simulated.
Totally, but I would have loved another shot at it.
So wait, here's the quote.
Yeah.
The quote says, "On some level, I was aware of being in a war. The war of my father making this film,
Mhm.
and what it put everyone through. I saw the pain in my own situation, but it was eclipsed by all the other things that were happening, the things that were going on around me. Death threats, money problems. When he ordered me to do that scene, my father made a choice. I wouldn't have done that with my kids, but ultimately I came to grips with why he did what he did." So can you just talk a little bit about what that was like? You used the word ordered, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
Do you feel
I
it?
don't remember this exact quote, but it's
Yeah.
close enough.
Okay.
So let me just clarify something.
Yeah.
I was raised in a family where we walked around nude. We didn't wear bathing suits at beaches. My sister and I didn't until we were 11 or 12. We just were different kids. We'd been all over Europe, so we were really different. We were sort of like raised, as I said in my little thing, much more culturally free.
Yeah.
We don't worry about dogs and cats and what they wear or don't wear, and so we just we're a much more open family. I was more. I had done a play prior to this where I had to have a breakdown every night.
Mhm.
That was much more emotionally draining for me than being in Sweetback. So I was a resilient soul. I'm still a resilient soul.
Yeah.
So I didn't tune into it as a super big deal.
Mhm.
I was more concerned about getting my afro cut, honestly. I had this dope afro, and luckily I got an afro wig, so that was more my focus.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I was just a skinny.
They
little-
cut your hair?
No.
No, they didn't.
They
cut your-
didn't. They got
yeah.
me an afro.
Okay,
that,
yeah,
that
yeah.
pulled up. You'll see it in my movie Badass. If you
Mhm.
watch Badass,
Yeah,
you'll
yeah.
see that whole scene. So I was more, but it's kind of like if you're in a war, and if right now in the studio something happened and you really cut your leg, that would stop the interview, and that would be a situation we'd deal with and get some little stitches or whatever is needed. But if we were in a war and you cut your leg, but the dude next to you lost an arm, or someone else next to you did this, they were killing people. There was a list. The COINTELPRO was alive and well.
Mm.
They were shooting Fred Hampton. They were threatening my dad. They had killed, as I said, Kennedy. I mean, they were taking people out.
People who spoke out.
People who spoke out, and
Yeah.
this was a movie who spoke. So there were bullets flying,
That was real.
That was real stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole crew got arrested for making a film while being minorities.
What?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, they arrested the whole crew, white, black, everything.
On what basis?
Just because they didn't see receipts for the camera equipment. They didn't think young people with long hair should be having that kind of a camera equipment. So there was everyday stuff way bigger
Yeah.
than this little issue of being with some lady who's a nice lady and being naked with her or so on. And
Right.
so in my zeitgeist, honestly, I didn't trip on it the way
Right.
other people trip on it. When I was in elementary school, they said something about, well, draw a picture of your mom and bring it to school. So I drew it. I always liked to go extra because I'm an artist. So I went home and I carved my mother in a wooden plaque. And I thought it was rather nice. And I took it to school and everyone flipped out. Oh, look at you, nasty, oh my God. I couldn't figure out what they were tripping on. I'd carved my mother in the nude. And my mother's white, but I saw Rembrandts, man. I grew up going to
Right.
the Louvre. I grew up seeing Godin, Je parle français, tu vois, c'est absolument différent. C'est pas du tout la même chose qu'ici, tu vois. So I grew up
speak that
yeah,
French.
I grew up speaking different languages, and so I couldn't get my head around where people were at. So I was like from Mars, man. So people, if you're really cool, you'll smoke. I could smoke with my mom.
Right.
Why would that, define
that's a
me as
whole
cool?
nother only
Do you
one in
know,
the
or you're
room.
really cool.
Yeah.
If you're really cool, you'll go parking with your girlfriend. Well, my girlfriend can stay over at the crib.
Right.
So I was in a different head. So
Yeah.
rebelling against very hip parents made no sense unless I wanted to be in the John Birch Society or
Right.
be a
Right.
I would have to do a whole 180, which I'm not about to do. So
Yeah.
so I was really so you have to understand my headspace was not
Right.
an outsider looking. Oh my God, that's so terrible. And then I got to do the other scene, which is blowing up the car, which I loved. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but I didn't. I did. So, a person and me,
Yeah.
we were just such a different family. Again, my dad's black, my mom's white, my aunt's gay. I gotta love everybody. There's nobody I can throw a boomerang out without that coming back and hit me in the back of my big head and go, wait a minute, you got two of those in the family tree. You know what I mean? And that's cool.
Right,
My ex is
right.
Hindu. You know what I mean? I got it all. So that was not super. The bigger thing to me was actually seeing my dad lose sight in his left eye, actually seeing the death threats.
When did that happen that he lost sight?
When he was editing.
When he was editing.
When the whole thing went bankrupt, when he almost didn't get it done.
He had self-funded.
Self-funded.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was such a risk, and he almost lost his life to it, and that was much more of an impression.
Oh,
to me.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So seismically, that was the proportion. But I understand culturally where America was at.
Well, it's really interesting to hear your point of view, and had our two conversations prior to this, I got the feeling that this didn't impact you the way that it was thought to impact you. That
Well,
the
people are
perceived
looking.
impact was
People are
different.
looking from their point of view.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're and here's the thing. Understand something else. There will be. I wouldn't do that with my kids, but there are going to be things they improve on and don't do with their kids. If you give your kid yellow, they're going to want to give their child red, and their child's going to go, I got yellow, but I got red, but now I want to give my kid blue. If only I had blue. So there's always going to be that.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing: is the truth is, we're not so much affected by or defined by what we face.
Yeah.
We're more revealed by how we face it.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have a different soul that goes out and loses his legs and becomes a drug addict. And that would make sense because oh man, he lost his legs. It was so tragic. He's now a drug addict. I get it. You could have someone else who loses their leg and they run a marathon.
Right.
So different souls can face the same stimulus and get an entirely different message from it.
Yeah.
That's what's so interesting. You can have one guy who reads a great book, like a Bible or a Quran or the Vedas, and gets an eye for an eye message, and someone else who gets a love thy neighbor as you love thyself message. So it depends on that soul's interpretation and their view of it.
Yeah.
So I think my dad, to some degree, knew I was ambitious, knew I was resilient, knew where I wanted to go, and even kind of in a way before I knew it.
Yeah.
So he could. Now that's not my siblings; they're not all that same way. And I can see. This is the thing: is that you understand. I feel as a filmmaker, films come through you, like your kids come through you, but they don't necessarily come from you. They have their own backstory. You got to listen to who they are and help them be the best version of who they are. And I think my dad had that ability to look at me and go, this brother is strong and resilient and happy.
Yeah.
You know, and feels welcome to the party. You know what I mean? So there's stuff you can do with that kid that you might not be able to do with another kid.
Right. So you were inspired.
I was
You were
inspired.
inspired.
I was in
Even
awe.
though
I
you
was
went
inspired.
to you went to Columbia.
Excuse me, yeah.
You got your BA. You thought that perhaps, as you described in your Brooks Brothers suit, that you might work in a different field, even though you were always pulled to the arts, right?
Well, part
you
of
were
that,
doing that
part
in
of
between.
Part of that was a conversation that I had with my father after he made Sweetback and had gone to Broadway years later. And he said, look, man, let me just be very realistic with you. If I had it to do over again, I knew how to make money. I didn't know how to spend it, i.e. invest it. I didn't understand finance as much as I would have liked.
Yeah.
If I had it to do over again, I would know more about the financial side, the business side of the show. The show business, the business. And he said, you know, a lot of dads can teach you to play ball. I'm going to teach you to own the team. And so that was really helpful.
So that was part of your education.
So it wasn't to be a budget.
separate.
It wasn't separate. It was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
America's built on what? Capitalism and democracy, right? So if you're not voting, if you're not involved in the political process, if you don't do politics, politics will do you.
Yeah.
If you take a knee and forget to vote, you're taking your foot off the gas pedal of the car called democracy, and the car will slow down, and your ass will get trumped. So you have to understand that if you're not in the business, if you're not in some way figuring out how to be your own boss or be a boss, you will again you will find yourself left out of the mix. And that was important. So that was a part of that whole
learning experience. It was part of your education.
Yeah, it was part of my education. You know, was saying, okay, well that makes sense. So it looks like a sort of detour.
Yeah.
But it really informed my ability to make a business out of what I love as an artist. So now I can go if I feel passionate about gun sense or the lack thereof, I can go fund.
Let's talk
arms.
about what you did do.
I can go do.
Because you went to make New Jack City.
Correct.
And so that's such a powerhouse, major cultural touchstone. People still quote Nino Brown, right? All the time.
Right.
How was that experience for you?
Well, interesting. Well, so you see, back to the thing of growing up with my dad and seeing him.
I'm sorry, just really quickly. New Jack City start Wesley Snipes as Nino Brown.
Correct. And Ice-T.
Ice-T.
Judd Nelson.
And
myself as
yes.
Russell Wong was in it. Chris
Rock. Alan
Payne. Big cast, right?
Okay.
So I had grown up, like I said, seeing my dad really go through it, not having any misconception about how hard it can be to get a complete vision on the screen that resembles something that would make a Van Peebles proud. And I have to go back to what that is. And this is where my dad and I are in sync, and maybe future generations will be. I don't know. That they'll tell us. A dude came across the street to me the other day, brother with silver dreads, looked like Elvis Mitchell. Mm-hmm. And he said, man, he's with his family. His wife was Asian. So black dude, Asian wife, beautiful mixed kids. And he said to me, I'm a fan, I'm not a groupie, I gotta say hello. Sometimes I go to the movies with my family and we're entertained, and that's a good thing. Sometimes I go to the movies with my family and we're informed, taught something inside of that entertainment. That's a better thing. And sometimes we go to the movies and we're also proud to be people of color. Mm. And with your movies, I get all three.
Oh.
And I said, that's what's important.
Yeah.
You know, I want to use cinema, not so that strangers know my name, not so that, I get laid more. That's not it. That's never been a thing. Not so that I get more money. I'm not a super materialistic cat. So once you go, okay, there's no more clothes I can wear. I don't want more house, because if you own too much stuff, that stuff owns you. Mm. You want to be a force for good. And so once you understand, you go like, what do I want to say? What do I want to leave? I want to find a way to entertain, but make folks think, compel people to think. If they think when they watch media then something marvelous happens, and then maybe they think when they order food, or they think about what they drive, or they think when they vote. You know what I mean? If you have to discern who the bad guy, good guy is in a film, and it's not spoon-fed to you,
Right.
maybe you discern a little better when you got a lot of folks saying, we don't even want to see witnesses. You know what I mean? So my thing has been love what I do, the 3 loves: love what I do, love and enjoy the folks I do it with, and love what I say with my work.
Yeah.
So I knew I had my father had demystified the process for me. I saw how hard it was to make Sweetback. Making New Jack City was eons easier than that. No one was threatening my life. Having said that, you know, anytime you do a first feature as a director, there's going to be a certain slings and arrows of outrageous fortune that you're going to have to go through. And I was
Little
ready
Hamlet.
for it. Oh, baby. and so I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to do this feature. What's your advice? And he said, well, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. That's one. And learn Kipling's If. You know Kipling's If?
Yes.
You know, if you keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, trust yourself when all men doubt you. You know, that poem was dope. So I committed If to memory. And there's always 2 things on a film. People get it twisted. They wonder about their shots and the lighting and the script. That's all good stuff. That's only part of the equation, and you don't know what part it is. The other part is managing the forces that make the movie. That was the challenge.
Yes.
So making the movie, dude, I'd been directing for Stephen Cannell, who was my mentor here. I'd been at Heartbreakers with Clint Eastwood, who was sort of a secondary mentor who really got me that shot to do New Jack City at Warner Brothers.
Oh.
And I had learned enough to know that love and help can come in any form, right? So if you're saying only black folks can help me, or white folks can help me, or women can help me, you're going to leave a lot of humanity off the table.
Yeah.
Leave yourself open to all the good energy. Let's be clear. The first dude to give me a break was a tall Republican cat named Clint Eastwood.
Right.
The second dude to give me a break was a tall Republican cat named Stephen Cannell,
Right.
who wrote a book and dedicated the book to my Hollywood son Mario. I didn't necessarily understand or agree with them politically. I sure didn't look like them, but I was open to mentorship from good people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you do that, you leave yourself, I know that sounds like very California, but when you leave yourself open to energy and positive energy from good folks, some folks you think are going to be there for you, brother, I'm a Gemini, I got your back, they'll never see their ass. And some folks you would never think will come forward. So you never know how it's going to shake out.
I was just going to say what you observed growing up at times was what was referred to as kind of guerrilla filmmaking.
Correct.
And so this was easier, but there was a game to be played.
Oh, let me
And-
give you an example. I mean, to be clear, and there's
Yeah.
enough time's gone by. There were producers on the movie, lovely guys, but some of the stuff they did was a little silly. And the problem was, I know what I'm doing. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not a first time. My dad would say, I'm born at night, but last night. So I knew I looked like a young guy who had been acting,
Right.
and why is he directing? And I can understand there might be some vibe on that. I get it, but I know what I'm doing as a filmmaker, and I know what I'm doing as an actor. And I feel solid about that, and I've been, raised in it. So it's very hard to run something by me that I'm not going to get, but it's possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things they ran by me was I was shooting a group called Guy, and we were doing a dope scene with Guy. Wesley's there, and this is a big scene in New Jack City. And I had the Luma crane, which is this very expensive instrument, like a crane, but it moves all around. The head articulates. You have to have a special operator. So I had to get Warner Brothers to give me extra special money and get the Luma crane from De Palma, who was shooting Bonfire of the Vanities. So I got the Luma crane over from De Palma.
Brian De Palma.
Yeah, Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
So I got to get it back, and I shot the guy, and I said, okay, great, wrap the Luma crane out. We're going to finish up with Steadicam, and I'm going to rock some handheld because it takes X amount of time to get the Luma crane off the set. Pull it off, get it dum. The 2 producers came to me and said, man, what are you doing? You should shoot some more with the Luma crane. I said, no, I'm good. I have my shots. Thank you. Okay, guys, blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, shoot some more with the Luma crane. I said, here's the thing. If you want to do that, I will wrap, and then you can continue to shoot more if you want. But that's on you. But
Right.
the record, the daily record will show that the director rapped, and you chose to keep the Lumicrane longer. They said, oh, no, man, forget it, man. You ain't with us, man. You ain't down, brother. You ain't down. I wrapped the Lumicrane went out. I stayed on budget. Of course, later on, what I find out, they managed the group.
Oh.
They were trying to get a free video.
Oh, that's...
So you have to understand there's those kind of forces.
Yeah.
Now, these are the same brothers that got the movie done, so I ain't mad at it.
Yeah.
But there was little shiesty shit that you had to watch. You had to kind of see around the corners on stuff, because that same hustle mentality that got the movie up there in the first place, and I have to give them credit for it. They did. Didn't mean that 101% that you couldn't watch them in other areas. You had to know. And then the very next dude that worked with them, he was a director, young director, came to me. He said, "How is it like working with those guys?" I said, "Well, they're really good, and they're good at what they do, but they want to direct, and they will try to fire you and get in there as a director." And that young brother was named Paris Barkley.
Ah.
And he was directing House Party too.
Yeah.
And they fired him.
Yeah.
And replaced him with themselves, just as predicted. And they took out an ad in the Reporter saying, "From the directors of New Jack City." And when I went to them, I said, "The credit is my credit as a director." He said, "Brother, that's a mistake. I can't believe how the white man would do. Oh my God, how would he do that? Oh Lordy.
Oh, you
What
saw
can we
right
do?"
through it.
Yeah.
Of course.
But again,
Yeah.
these were the guys that were smart enough to get it going. They're a big part of why the movie is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's the ability to see the good in them and be honest about the negative.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other. It's the ability to
Well,
go.
and just be mindful of
Be
all
mindful.
of that.
Say,
Yeah.
this hustler mentality that can get you there can also make it can be harmful to the project. If a high tide will lift all ships.
Well, and it sounds
Really?
like you operated in integrity, and that was what kept you giving yourself or giving the world a Van Peebles picture that you were proud of.
Right, and thank you, and part of that was, there was a huge deal on New Jack City, and part of that was the casting was, when back then, if you were a African American actor in an action movie, you played the police commissioner. That was understood. You had great lines like, "Do it by the book or I'm gonna have your ass." Now you've seen many, great.
Yeah.
So we got him over there, but he's not going to be the Mel Gibson.
He's not a
Okay.
threat.
He's not a threat.
Yeah.
So when we looked at it, we went home and I talked with these producers, and they brothers and like myself, and very smart. And they laughed. They said, "What if we put the white guy in as the police commissioner and let him say, 'Do it by the book, Ice-T, or I'll have your ass'?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went home, and we laughed about that. And I looked at my family wall. I got white folks, I got black folks, I got Asian folks. And I thought, you know what? I get the humor of that, but that's reactionary cinema. That's get even cinema. That's not I don't want to do unto them as they've done unto me. I want to do unto them as I would like them to do unto me, as I would like them to do unto America.
Yeah.
Show America. It took Americans of all colors to build this beautiful country. If you don't take pride in it, you unconsciously want to destroy it. So I went back and said, you know what? Let's mix it up. Let's have Ice-T play the cop, Wesley, and that was part of their idea too. I'm not taking sole credit for this. Wesley play the gangster. I'll call it my boy Judd Nelson, who I went to school with. We'll have a Jewish cop. And then Russell Wong, who's this great-looking Asian brother, he'll be one of the cops. The attorney who takes Nito down at the end will be a sister of color, a dark-skinned sister of color, and I'll play the police commissioner and say, "Do it by the book, or I'll have your ass."
So it was intentional.
Absolutely intentional to say, if you wanted folks to say no, you had to give them role models to say yes to. Cinematically, you had to show the power of being on this side of the equation or that side of the equation. That anyone in that movie who touched the poison died.
Yeah.
So that was the part where I said, okay, I'm going to make them think that you raise in the context of that, you raise the question of legalization that Nino Brown says, it's bigger than Nino Brown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This goes way up the ladder. You can get drugs in the black community, but you don't grow poppy fields in the black community or
Right.
have gun manufacturing plants. That means it's all imported.
Or coca leaves.
Yeah,
or-
so you can arrest
yeah.
the guy dealing it there, but who's bringing it in? It's the
Right,
whole
which is
Iran
always
Contra.
in
It's all
Narcos and all that.
absolutely. So it was part of touching on that bigger zeitgeist that I
Mm-hmm.
found compelling, and still making a movie that kicked ass. And
Yeah.
that was those producers that helped and put it. It was a team effort, and Wesley doing his thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes as a director, knowing when to just get out of the way,
Yeah.
having not having an ego in it, and going, damn, they doing Alan Payne and Wesley are doing this scene on the roof. All I got to do is roll camera.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because
right.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
There's art being
knowing
made.
when to hold them and know when to fold them.
I just want to fly through a couple things because we're running close to time, and there's so much I want to talk to you about.
I can blab my ass.
So Panther, I watched with particular interest because Huey Newton was a friend of mine.
Wow.
I went to high school with his son Ronnie, and so as an adult, he was a friend of mine until
Nice.
the day that he was murdered
Wow.
or assassinated.
Right.
And it was a really beautiful film, and I hope everybody who didn't get to see it goes out and sees it now, or rents it, or streams it, or whatever.
By the way, that is the one film that is the hardest to get of all my films.
Is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You can
I
make a
actually
movie-
looked for it
yeah,
and
it's
had a hard time.
Very Panther. It's
It
almost,
shouldn't be.
Some people say it's almost like a deliberate,
Yeah.
silencing
yes.
of that movie. That if you could show people shooting it up in the hood, but if you show them starting to come together across color lines and vote and participate, and,
Yeah.
and think in a way that may go against the status quo, that's going to be a hard movie
Yes.
to find. That and Spook Who Sat by the Door. Those are two very interesting films.
Which was a book.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greenlee, wasn't it Green? I think it was Greenlee. Anyway, okay.
And it's Nipsey Hussle
Yes.
had it on his book list,
Yeah.
and now there's all those book clubs are springing up
Yeah.
around the country. So Posse, which is
Yeah.
another film that I really want to talk about more, but I'm just going to tell you how much I loved it and how it changed the way I thought about American history.
Right.
Sally Richardson,
Right.
who's married to Dondre Whitfield, who was a guest on the show last year,
Beautiful.
was just incredibly beautiful, and you were amazing. Every single black person I know saw Posse. If you can see that, because it's a black Western, it is a true depiction. I don't know if the script is true, but it's a true telling
Yes.
of what of the black cowboys
Correct.
that no one ever mentions in our history books.
In fact, they've been asking me to do another Western, and I'm sort of putting that together.
Oh,
on
good,
Posse. And
good.
stuff.
I
Maybe
hope
some,
so.
Some badass historical women in that saddle as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to being back in the West. You know, a lot of people don't know the first 44 settlers of Los Angeles, 26 were African American. So people don't know that. I mean,
No.
you had white settlers going across in wagons. You had black folks walking across with rags tied around their feet. So if you pan down, they had a tough time coming across
Right.
those settlers. You pan down. Here's the brother
Look at the
walking
brothers
by,
walking
brothers
with
and
their
sisters
rags on
walking
their
behind
feet.
with rags on their
Yeah,
feet. I mean, it's a
man.
whole different deal, because the first thing you'd want to do is get out the South. You'd be like, oh, hell no.
By any
Color me
means
gone.
necessary.
Go to Oklahoma, go
Right.
to Black Wall Street, all that
And
story.
that- yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So we did touch on Badass, which is also really important because you do go back and it is full circle,
Yeah.
and you get to tell this story, which a lot of people missed. That's also hard to get.
Yeah, is that
You
hard
know,
to get? Okay.
not
yeah.
Badass,
Yeah.
but your dad's film.
Oh, Sweetback.
Sweetback is
Yeah.
hard to get.
Okay.
You
I
can
think
see
it's
clips.
on Xenon Records.
Xenon?
Xenon.
Okay.
Not Records. Yeah.
But what I want to talk about now was Armed.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put down my notes for a second. I was completely struck that this movie that you made, you wrote it,
Yes.
came out in 2018, which means you shot it when? 2017?
Yes.
And it has so many of the same beats as Joker. Like, it
Right.
killed me.
Right.
I mean, down to like certain scenes.
Right.
Even the clown face, the nose, and I'm just going to spoil some of the movie, but there's the delusion,
Right.
the dealings with mental health, and gun control.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean,
is that wild?
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's funny how you. So what I do is this. That again. See, this is partly due to. I got to thank Mom and Dad. Mom showed me the mountain. Dad showed me how to climb it. But I'm able to go out and put financing together on a movie and not ask anyone's permission, and make a pretty interesting
Oh, it's
cinematic
great.
experience, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So and get some folks to play with me, like Bill Fickner came in with me on that, and some other folks, and
No, you have a great cast. It's really compelling. It was easy to get like engaged almost immediately. But then what I was engaged with was really the wrong plot, because there was a surprise.
Yeah,
And like I said, it's so similar to Joker, which I also loved. But did you feel like you got bit a little bit?
Well,
like
I don't know that it was a conscious thing, but we were there first.
Yeah. The proof is in the release date.
The release date,
Yeah.
And we got the best. We got the audience award at the Newark Film Festival. We got the directors award at Portland. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those movies that plays at the circuits, and I think it's now on Amazon.
It is.
It's on Amazon.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we saw it. Scott and I watched it
and kind of
together.
an interesting soundtrack, isn't it?
Very interesting soundtrack.
So
yes,
like,
you can see all your stuff being pulled together in this.
Yeah. So it's really what I was interested in was I based it all in real stories. So that's some of the craziest stories in Armed, like the guy who's with a samurai sword watching the torture porn.
Yeah.
There was a guy like that, and his neighbor came breaking in to save the woman, only to find this guy's got a rubber doll and not at all doing what he thought. You know what I mean? But just blasting it. I thought, oh, that's weird. There was another guy who had worn the tinfoil cap.
Yeah.
That's totally real.
Well,
there was
you
a whole
say that
Yeah, there was
at the end
you see some of the people.
Yeah.
So there's some of the strangest stuff. So part of it was I delighted in pulling things from the headlines
yes.
and sort of sewing together like beads on a thread. Sort of saying, oh, this is going to, that whole thing with Chris Donner, where you knew that he the whole shootout in Big Bear.
Yes.
Do you know what I
yes.
mean? And then this whole sort of white supremacist sort of fringe group rise, and sort of that, so that's the sort of reemergence of the banjo playing.
And all the questions you raised about good guys and bad guys with guns.
Right.
And there was that.
And then Van Jones in the middle of it, he's sort of the great last voice of reason. Van Jones is dope. I'm going to see him tomorrow.
I was so happy to see him in the movie. You're going to see him tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm going to see Van tomorrow.
Tell him I loved him in Armed. So yeah, the movie's called Armed. We're not going to get to talk about Bring Your A Game, but I just want to say that it is available online. It's 20 minutes, maybe?
Yeah, 20 minutes, yeah.
It has an incredible cast of people in it talking. It's an educational video game like. Yeah.
Deliberately so, because
about education.
Yeah, it's for at-risk youth. I mean,
right.
We did it to look. You got to look at where your constituency is. If your constituency is watching video games, then go to them. Don't try to get them to come to you and watch some elitist documentary. So be cognizant of where you're going. And
you break down some just heart-wrenching facts.
Right.
In that, in such a visual and real way that it's easy to see.
Right.
And connect to. So bravo for that.
Thank you.
Just the last thing, you said something. I have another quote from you, that you never got to get full green. You're more like olive green.
Correct.
We're talking about your eco-consciousness, right?
I did a show called Mario's Greenhouse.
Right.
Yeah.
With your 5 children.
Correct.
Which we also didn't talk about.
Right.
And a couple of your kids are in Armed.
Yeah, they work for the Van Peebles Prize.
Yes.
Which is discount.
Discount.
Come early, leave late, work hard, learn some shit.
That's awesome. And then you just finished a documentary feature? Is it a documentary? Salt and Pepper.
I just finished the Salt and Pepper movie.
The movie?
It's for Sony and Lifetime.
Wow. And it's scripted?
It's scripted. It's big. It's going to be fun.
And it stars the actual...
It stars these 2 young women who are playing Salt and Pepper.
Yeah,
and we got a Spinderella and...
You got a Spinderella.
Oh, yeah. And then at the end of the movie, you see the real
Salt and Pepper.
So, yeah.
Salt and Pepper.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. The Girl Power is fun. It was so fun to put that on the screen. I'm going up to edit it. I leave Wednesday to go edit.
Oh, I'm glad we nabbed you then.
You did.
So here's my dear Laura that I told you about. And this is a letter from my brother Kofi. Shout out to Kofi.
What's up, Kofi?
What's up, Kofi? He says, I'm a vegan living in a world of animal eaters. 95% of the time when I'm invited to an event where there's food, I'm usually stuck eating salad or nothing at all. And I just thought this one was interesting because, one, it's true. I've been to events with him where people are like giving him a plate of broccoli when they find out that he doesn't eat animal products. And it just seems like it's so far out of the realm of what people consider to be food if there's not animal products on the table. What are you, are you flexitarian, vegan, vegetarian?
I'm actually hardcore vegan in between meals. so spiritually,
in your head,
in my head, right?
You're
it's
like
my one daughter's singing. She sounds like Whitney in her head.
Yeah.
Not to the rest of us.
That is not doesn't come out like that.
So I was, as I told you, I was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I found it easy to go vegan there because there were so many. There's such a plethora of vegetable options that are amazing and brightly cut. I am a visual dude. They bring you bright red and pink and all these eggplants and it was just awesome. So
you're making me hungry.
Oh, that was great. When you get here or on the airline, it gets kind of reductive, and it just gets to be.
Well, I think that's what he's talking about.
Let's just give you more of the side thing.
Mm-hmm. So no full entrees.
Yeah,
normally.
no. I just went to a restaurant the other day in Beverly Hills that is vegan.
Yeah. Which one?
I have to. Nick's.
Nick's?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't been there.
Yeah. There's one called Crossroads.
Crossroads we love.
And there's Tu Mama or something.
Gracias Madre. Gracias Madre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are more.
So there are more coming up, and then I guess you have to decide what it is you like. Like some vegan options are sort of normal folk food, but the vegan version.
Right.
I'm a little less interested in that.
Well,
it's
like
I don't like
processed,
fake. Yeah, I don't
right?
like fake stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like,
like a burger or a tuna melt, and they're really not.
Right. Now some of the burgers are pretty good. I have to
the
say
Impossible burgers are good.
Some of them, or they're near beef. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
No, we're doing promos now.
Yeah.
This is funny. We're doing product placement. You're gonna make me hungry.
Yeah, we're educating people there.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
awesome.
So I think we're headed more that way. There was an award show recently that had only vegan.
Was
options.
it the Golden Globes?
Maybe it was.
The Globes,
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now we're starting to wake up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And we have to speak up on sets.
Yes.
So people like myself have to say, hey man, let's use paper. Let's not use one use only plastics. Let's use multiple use stuff. Let's
sustainable.
You look at the doomsday clock, man. Look, Dr. King
It just
said,
moved up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. King said we either learn to live together as brothers and sisters or we perish together as fools. I add to that, and now we either learn to live together as brothers and sisters in harmony with nature,
Right.
or we perish together as fools.
Yeah.
Time is running out for black, brown, straight, or gay to get along. We got to get right with nature fast. And look, here's the thing. We have a long precedent of doing that. There have been many, many indigenous peoples who lived in harmony with nature for eons before we industrialize. It's modern man that's the problem.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is you look at what's happening in Australia with those fires and the Murdoch's control of it's like Fox News controls 60% of the media, and they put out this whole thing that climate change is basically a hoax. And yet Australia's burning, and you have Bolsonaro in Brazil who's letting the rainforest burn, and he's on the same time. So we have these sort of people who've almost adopted a Trump-like stance on the environment, which is laugh now, cry later.
There's this.
But we all breathe the same air. It's like they don't get it. We breathe the same air.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
There's this like really quick indigenous story that I heard, and I'm going to see if I don't mess it up. It was like, what if all our brothers and sisters who swim in the ocean died? We're gone. If they were just gone. And then the answer is the oceans would die. And what if all our brothers and sisters who walk around on four legs were suddenly gone? Then the earth would die. And then what if all of mankind died or was gone? Then everything else would thrive.
Yeah, here's the thing. The worms don't need us. We need them.
Right.
The bees don't need us. We need them.
The trees.
So when you understand, we're basically, here's the deal. So what I was talking, every now and then you sit down, you go, it's fun to track your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like you just say, like I was thinking in Vietnam when I was born, I was thinking, okay, so what would you tell someone? How do you win at life? Well, the first thing is don't die. So, like all living things, avoid death as much as possible. Something comes running at you, get out of its way,
Right.
avoid death.
Yes.
The second thing is, try to procreate now and then. It's fun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Try to eat some good stuff.
Yeah.
But then you look at it and you say, okay, now we're all on this earth, which is a little bit anthropocentric of us to call it Earth, because it's really more water than Earth. So it should really be called ocean, if you want to look proportionately. But because we live on Earth and we're anthropocentric and we look at it with human aggressiveness and
Yes.
human machoism, we call it Earth, just like we called natives here Indians, because we don't care what you call yourself. So you look at it and you go, well, we're on this Earth. We're flying through the solar system. And we're killing off everything we need to survive on this planet. We're poisoning the air for profit. We're poisoning the water for profit. We're poisoning the earth for profit. And profit is totally man-made. It's a man-made construct.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we doing? You know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of bizarre that, you know, it's a funny thing. They look, if the economy goes up, people build more and pollute more. If the economy goes down, condom sales go up when the economy goes down.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People actually start to grow gardens.
Right.
do you know what I mean?
Oh,
if
that's
the economy,
funny.
if you've invested in the pharmaceuticals and pharmaceuticals are going up, but that means more people are getting sick.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's an inverse relationship with the economy that you have to look at, and you have to not just look at gross national product, but
Right.
gross national happiness. I took economics at Columbia. I majored in economics. So you're sitting in a wooden chair. Economics would have me believe that the price of that chair is what it would cost me to have someone go to the forest, cut that tree down, make it into a chair, sand it, polish it, bring it to market, and then the forces of supply and demand would tell you what that chair is worth. But that is in fact wrong, because the economics that I learned at this very lovely Ivy League school was wrong, because it never took into account what the tree was doing for free. That tree was providing animal habitat and oxygen and possible medicines and possibly a spirit. But we don't account for it. Now economic models are starting to take into fact, what if we have to pay for oxygen? What does that new price point look like?
Right.
So until and then when I was in Vietnam, people are wearing those masks.
Yeah.
So the solution to bad air is
Right.
wear a mask.
Yeah.
So I looked at the guy and said, man, the air is terrible. He says, yes, but it helps with my mask sales. So I said, well, what would happen if the air cleaned up? He said, I'd be out of a job.
Wow.
You go, wow, if we're now basing an economy on bad air, we're selling fake water or plastic water, because we never thought we'd buy plain water. That was like a right to have
Right.
clean water. You're going to be buying air, you know. So if we don't find a way to take the profit out of poison by making being clean profitable, it's going to be
Yeah.
trouble, man.
It is
Because
gonna be
we've really
trouble.
bought into the capitalist, you know, modem, and
That
you
was
know,
beautiful.
so-
That was like an ecology sermon.
Oh, sorry.
No, it was.
Yeah.
It
Well,
really
one of the things I
was.
touched on in the Western that I want to do is they find a town called Little Heaven, and we go in to rob a bank. And as we go in to rob the bank, the people in the bank start laughing at us. And we can't figure it out. And they open up, they say, well, what do you want? And they open it up, do you want chia or rye? And they don't have money in the bank, they have seeds. And we realized that they don't use money in this town at all. It's a complete barter town. And the mayor of the town explains that in a capitalist society, you respect those that are rich. In a barter society, you honor those that are honorable. And that the bartering and trading relies on cooperation. And so it brings out that side of our nature, the cooperative side versus the competitive side.
Oh.
And so they go just into a town that's called Little Heaven, and they see a whole nother way of life.
Interesting.
So part of the fun is take a movie,
Yeah.
and in that say, can I discover other stuff? Can I see other stuff? In Armed, can I make you look at, you know, a good guy with a gun, but what if this cat's got a skewed moral compass
Yeah.
and maybe even a skewed sort of sense of reality? What then? If I've
and
armed
what is
all those
the
people,
answer?
what is the answer?
I am going to stop us there because actually the last two things I want to know are so that the Western you're making is one of the things that's next for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that people need to be looking out for?
Salt and Pepper, I think, should be out, I think, Memorial Day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's going to be
Okay, I'll
pretty
be
soon.
seeing
Yeah,
that,
that's going to be
for
hot.
sure.
And I never know as a director. You know, I'll work on something like the Western, and then something will come in. And people bring it to me, and I get surprised. I love playing with the other kids on the block. Half of my great ideas are not my ideas. They come from other people that go, hey, man, if you're open to it, what about
Right.
this? And then if you're egoless enough to get out of the way, you discover it with them, and that's the fun of it.
Where can people find you on social media?
Oh, yeah, hey, I'm doing the Instagram
Yes,
thing.
you are.
Yeah,
I've been following you.
It's kind of fun, man. I just directed an episode of Power that was on last night.
Yes.
But I'm on Instagram under my name. I'm verified, and people actually hit me up with messages, and I actually respond to it.
Oh, I'm going to try
So
that.
yeah,
after.
try it out.
Yeah.
So I'll
Okay.
hit you, say something bizarre, and I'll hit you back and go,
Okay.
"What the fuck?" He said.
I'll do some insider baseball.
You
or
could do
something.
inside,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do respond. So I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Um,
Are you
I'm
on Twitter?
enjoying- Not really.
Okay.
You know,
So Instagram's the way to find you.
Yeah, more Instagram.
Okay.
Um,
And you'll be voting in 2020?
I
In this
usually.
year?
Oh yeah, I go out and campaign.
You're gonna. Who are you
Oh yeah,
campaigning
yeah.
for?
I'll figure it out.
You'll figure it
we'll
out.
See,
Okay.
I mean, I did.
We're
I did
close
work-
to knowing.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
So we got to make some changes. You know, this is the thing is this. You know, we know that I believe that we could recorrect this sort of language of hate that we're hearing a lot of, this sort of climate of discord and divisiveness that we're getting a lot of. I think we could correct that, but we wouldn't be able to correct some of the irreparable damage to the environment.
Right.
And that's the thing.
And so that's.
And the irreparable damage to the courts.
Yeah. Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
if Ruth gets replaced.
I
you know,
can't
just-
even discuss
I
it.
mean, so
No.
it's just so alarming that we're going down a road of we're gonna just pollute more, and I mean, we have a very destructive force in office right
Yeah.
now. You know.
Mario,
You.
thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank
me
you so
on.
much. This was so
I
great.
could do more of this.
Oh my God, we could have been
you
here
could
for
have been
hours.
here for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
If you're here for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.